A failed comedian, a corrupt city, and a live broadcast that changes everything. This isn't just a story about a man snapping, it's the terrifying rise of a criminal legend. Let's break it down. As our story begins, we meet Arthur, a struggling clown sitting in front of a mirror, carefully applying his makeup, while the TV in the background blares news about a collapsing city, rising inflation, and endless trash buildup. But inflation like this is decided by the powerful, making the rich even richer, while the working class has to bleed just to put food on the table. Shortly after, while Arthur is working on the street, dressed as a clown and holding a promotional sign for a store, a group of young street kids suddenly target him. They hurl insults at him, snatch his sign, and take off running down the street. Arthur desperately chases them to get his sign back, but they lead him right into a dark alleyway, where they brutally jump him, beating him senseless and smashing his sign to pieces. When a bruised Arthur returns to his office, expecting a little sympathy, his boss does the exact opposite and lays into him. Arthur tries to explain that he was jumped and the board was destroyed, but his boss refuses to believe him, insisting it makes no sense. The boss threatens that if Arthur does not return the sign, the cost will be docked directly from his meager paycheck. Overwhelmed by the cruelty and unfairness, Arthur retreats to a quiet spot and breaks down in tears. Seeing him so broken, his coworker Randall approaches him, calling out the kids and saying they need to be taught a lesson, but Arthur softly defends them, saying they were just kids. To help him defend himself, Randall secretly pulls out a loaded gun and hands it over to Arthur, telling him to keep it for safety. Arthur, overwhelmed and without asking a single question, takes the weapon. Later, Arthur meets with his social service therapist, because he suffers from a neurological disorder that causes him to burst into uncontrollable, painful laughter, a condition stemming from a severe head injury in his childhood. His treatment relies entirely on state funding, and feeling his mental health deteriorate, he begs the therapist to increase his medication, though she reminds him he is already on 7 different prescriptions. On his way back home on the bus, Arthur tries to bring a little joy to a bored kid sitting in front of him by making funny faces, showing just how gentle his true nature is. But the child's mother misinterprets his intentions, snapping at him to leave her son alone. The stress triggers Arthur's condition, causing him to break into uncontrollable laughter right when he feels most embarrassed, unable to stop no matter how hard he tries. As the woman stares at him in disgust, assuming he is out of his mind, Arthur hands her a small card explaining his medical condition, which makes him laugh uncontrollably during moments of extreme stress or pain. Arriving home, Arthur checks the mailbox, a daily routine driven by his mother, Penny, who constantly asks if a letter from billionaire Thomas Wayne has arrived. Penny worked as a housekeeper in the Wayne mansion years ago, and she firmly believes that if Thomas knew about their miserable conditions, he would step in and help them. Penny worries constantly about Arthur, seeing how frail he is and how much weight he carries on his shoulder every single day. That evening, Arthur watches the news, where local politicians blame the city's decay entirely on a rat infestation, offering ridiculous solutions that feel useless to anyone actually struggling to survive. Right after, they tune into the Murray Franklin Show, a popular late-night comedy program. Both Arthur and his mother are obsessed with Murray, and Arthur views the host as a father figure he never had, dreaming of becoming a successful stand-up comedian just like him. He vividly imagines being in Murray's live studio audience, where Murray singles him out, brings him up on stage, praises his devotion to his mother, and tells the crowd he wishes he had a son like Arthur. That brief fantasy is the only thing giving Arthur a sense of warmth and validation. However, reality hits hard, and Arthur remains deeply depressed over his boss's cruel treatment. While heading up to his apartment, he shares an elevator ride with Sophie, a single mother living down the hall, and Arthur instantly feels a deep spark for her. Once inside, his mother asks about Thomas Wayne yet again, prompting Arthur to gently tell her that a powerful billionaire is not going to care about people like them. The next day, Arthur decides to follow Sophie on her way to work. Sophie notices him, and that evening, she knocks on his apartment door, asking if he was trailing her. When Arthur admits he was, instead of being creeped out, Sophie laughs it off, charmed by his quirkiness, and a romantic bond quickly forms between them. The following day, Arthur is hired to entertain sick children at a local hospital, dancing and spreading smiles as a clown. But while jumping around, the gun Randall gave him accidentally slips out of his pocket and falls onto the floor in front of everyone, terrifying the children and staff. When his boss finds out, he calls Arthur on the phone, screaming at him for bringing a firearm into a children's hospital and firing him on the spot. Arthur desperately begs for his job, explaining it was just a fake prop for his act, but his boss refuses to listen, leaving Arthur completely abandoned once again. His boss then drops a bombshell, revealing that Randall had already called ahead, claiming Arthur had tried to buy a gun from him. Arthur is completely shattered by the betrayal, unable to process why his friend would set him up like that. Deeply broken and jobless, Arthur boards a subway train to head home. Mid-ride, 3 young, wealthy executives from Wayne Enterprises enter the car and begin aggressively harassing a young woman. Distressed by the situation, Arthur suddenly suffers an attack of his uncontrollable laughter. Mistaking his medical condition for mockery, the 3 men turn their aggression on Arthur, beating him viciously on the floor. Unable to speak or defend himself with words, Arthur snaps, pulls out the gun, and shoots all 3 of them dead. Panicked, he flees the scene and hides inside a public restroom. But as the adrenaline settles, Arthur feels no guilt. Instead, a bizarre sense of relief and liberation washes over him. He begins to dance, marking his turn toward complete mental instability. The next day, news of the murders spreads like wildfire. Billionaire Thomas Wayne appears on TV, warning the victims as good men and calling the killer a coward hiding behind a clown mask. Ironically, this public outrage turns the killer into a symbol of anti-rich rebellion among the lower class, making Arthur feel noticed for the first time in his life. Soon after, Arthur visits his therapist, who delivers yet another blow. The government has cut the social service budget, meaning his therapy and medication are being permanently discontinued. Arthur bitterly confronts her, pointing out that despite asking about his negative thoughts, she never truly listened to him. Hoping to pursue his dream anyway, Arthur performs at a local stand-up comedy club, where he has invited Sophie to watch. On stage, his laughing condition hits him hard, but he manages to regain control, tell his jokes, and win over the crowd. Later, after a romantic night with Sophie, he returns home to find a letter his mother wrote to Thomas Wayne. Driven by curiosity, Arthur opens it and reads a shocking claim: he is Thomas Wayne's illegitimate son. When confronted, Penny insists that she and Thomas were once deeply in love, but society forced them to keep it a secret. Seeking answers, Arthur goes to Wayne Manor, where he sees young Bruce Wayne playing outside and tries to perform a magic trick for him. Alfred, the butler, quickly intervenes, and when Arthur claims to be Thomas' son, Alfred angrily tells him that Penny was delusional and made up the entire story. Enraged, Arthur briefly grabs Alfred by the collar before fleeing into the night. Returning to his apartment, Arthur finds his mother being rushed to the hospital after suffering a stroke. At the hospital, 2 police detectives arrive to question him about the subway murders and his recent firing over a gun. The stress and relentless interrogation push Arthur further to the edge. While sitting by his mother's bedside alongside Sophie, the TV airs The Murray Franklin Show. To Arthur's horror, Murray plays a video clip of Arthur's failed comedy set, turning his painful laughing episode into a national punchline. The betrayal by his idol destroys the last piece of respect Arthur had for the world. Out on the streets, rage boils over as thousands of impoverished citizens don clown masks, protesting against the elite. Arthur feels an undeniable surge of pride seeing his chaos inspire the city. He sneaks into an exclusive movie theater where the wealthy, including Thomas Wayne, are enjoying a Charlie Chaplin film. Arthur corners Thomas in the restroom, pouring his heart out and calling him father. But Thomas coldly shuts him down, revealing that Arthur was adopted, that Penny was mentally ill, and that Arthur himself spent time in an asylum as a child. When Arthur breaks into hysterical laughter, Thomas punches him squarely in the face, warning him to stay away from his family. Utterly destroyed, Arthur goes back home, empties his refrigerator in a silent breakdown, and crawls inside, shutting the door on the world. An unexpected phone call suddenly breaks the silence. A producer informs Arthur that Murray Franklin wants him as a guest on his show, as the broadcast of Arthur's embarrassing clip had sent their ratings soaring. Driven to find the truth about his past, Arthur visits Arkham State Hospital, where he approaches an archivist with disturbing detachment, casually admitting to the subway murders without a shred of remorse. Refused access to the confidential files, Arthur snatches his mother's medical folder and flees. Reading through the records, he uncovers a horrific truth. Penny had stood by while an abusive boyfriend severely beat young Arthur, causing the traumatic head injury responsible for his neurological condition. The files also reveal that Arthur was adopted, shattering his entire world as he realizes Penny was never his biological mother. Dazed and broken, Arthur wanders into Sophie's apartment seeking comfort, only for a terrified Sophie to ask him to leave, revealing that their entire relationship, along with Murray's heartwarming praise on stage, was nothing more than a delusion born of his shattered psyche. Overwhelmed by betrayal, Arthur goes to the hospital, suffocates Penny with a pillow, and returns home to prepare for his appearance on the Murray Franklin Show. As he paints his face in full Joker makeup, his former co-workers Randall and Gary arrive to express their condolences. Realizing Randall set him up with the gun, Arthur brutally executes him against the wall, but spares Gary, thanking him for being the only person who was ever kind to him. Dressed in a vibrant suit and dancing down the city stairs, Arthur is spotted by the two detectives pursuing him. He sprints into a subway car packed with clown-masked riders, where the chaos escalates, leading to an accidental gunshot by a detective that kills a protester, causing the furious crowd to beat the officers as Arthur casually slips away. Reaching the studio, Murray greets him backstage, asking if his clown persona is a political statement, to which Arthur simply replies it is just his identity, requesting to be introduced as Joker. Once on live television, Arthur tells a dark, disturbing joke that turns the studio silent. Unfazed, he confesses to the subway murders on air, passionately calling out a hypocritical society that mourns 3 wealthy executives while stepping over the poor every single day. When Murray confronts him for his cynicism, Arthur pulls out a gun and shoots Murray dead live on air, plunging the nation into horror. Arrested and placed in the back of a police cruiser, Arthur watches with twisted satisfaction as Gotham burns in violent riot. Suddenly, an ambulance driven by rioters slams into the police car, knocking the officers out and freeing Arthur. He steps onto the hood of a wrecked car, wiping his own blood across his face to form a grotesque, smiling mask as the cheering crowd hails him as their leader. Elsewhere in a dark alley, a masked rider corners Thomas Wayne and his wife, shooting them both dead in front of young Bruce. Later, Arthur sits in a spotless white room at Arkham State Hospital, chuckling quietly to himself, completely consumed by the madness he brought to the world. And with that, our story comes to an end, so if you enjoyed this ride, make sure to smash that subscribe button, leave a like, and drop your thoughts down in the comments below, because I'd love to know what you think.